Hey guys, what's up? This is Eric Reagan at Photography Bay, and today we're going to look at the Canon EOS M10 and the Sony A5100. These are two cameras with similar specifications and price points, and you can get a lens adapter for both that allows you to use Canon lenses on either camera. So we'll be specifically looking at the official Canon EF to EOS M adapter. It retails for $200, but you can currently find it at places like B&H for about $50. On the Sony side of things, we'll be looking at the third-party Metabones EF to E-mount Speed Booster Ultra. This is the previous version to what's on the market today, and today you can find the latest version for about $650. It is designed for Sony APS-C cameras and allows you to use Canon full-frame lenses on an APS-C camera like the A5100. While you can use it on the full-frame cameras like the A7 series, you have to use those cameras in crop mode in order to take advantage of the Speed Booster adapter for Canon lenses. It's an interesting animal in that it compensates for the crop factor of the APS-C format and effectively reduces that crop factor by a magnification of 0.71x. It provides an effective one-stop increase in lens apertures. And it actually has optical elements inside the adapter. It has 5 elements in 4 groups that provides the compensation for the crop factor and the effective aperture on your Sony cameras. Both adapters offer internal control over lenses for program, aperture, shutter priority mode so that you can control the electronic aspects of Canon lenses on either the EOS M or the Sony E-mount cameras. So the purpose of this comparison is to see what the autofocus performance is like for these adapters on the Canon EOS M10 and the Sony A5100 while using Canon lenses. So first up, let's get some baseline performance with the kit lenses for the EOS M10 and A5100. For the EOS M10, that is the EF M15 to 45 f5 to 6.3 ISSTM lens. So as I mentioned in my first impressions of the EOS M10 at Photo Plus, it is a solid performer for autofocus. Canon seems to have really refined the AF performance on its mirrorless offerings, and the M10 does a solid job of providing autofocus for a consumer mirrorless camera. For the Sony A5100, the kit lens is the 16 to 50 f3.5 to 5.6 OSS power zoom. With the native E-mount lenses like this kit lens on the A5100, autofocus is very snappy. To my eye, it seems to be a slightly better performer than the Canon EOS M10 and its kit lens. This is expected since Sony is several generations into its mirrorless lineup now. Moving on to the Canon EOS M10 with the EF to EF-M adapter and the EF 40mm f2.8 STM lens, which is a pancake form factor and works nicely with the compact form factor of the EOS M10. And of the 3 EF lenses that I tested, the 40mm f2.8 STM model had the best performance on the EOS M10. It's also the most recent of the 3 from Canon, and it has the newer STM technology, which is designed to work with the live view AF system in the Canon EOS Rebels and other DSLRs that have built-in live view. So it makes sense to see this performing well on the EOS M10, which uses that core live view technology for all of its focusing operations. And for the A5100, we now have the Metabones EF to E-mount Speed Booster Ultra and the 40mm f2.8 STM lens. And right away, it's clear that the Canon lenses aren't going to measure up to the AF standards we're used to on Sony E-mount cameras. And while it managed to focus with the Canon lenses using the Metabones adapter, it was still much slower than the EOS M10 with Canon's own adapter. So now we're looking at the Canon with the adapter and the EF 50mm 1.4 USM lens. This is a relatively old lens in Canon's lineup, but it still performed pretty well with the Canon adapter on the EOS M10. Not as fast as the 40mm STM, but still respectable for a mirrorless camera and a non-native lens. On the Sony A5100, however, the 50mm 1.4 did not do well. It took some finagling to finally get the camera to focus with the 50mm 1.4 lens, and this is clearly not the strong point of this adapter. I was able to finally get somewhat consistent results by getting close on the first attempt at autofocusing, and as it got close to the true focus point, attempting to refocus, and then it would finally lock on focus. It's not ideal and probably something you don't want to rely on when using this lens on a Sony camera and the Metabones adapter. And finally, we have the EOS M10 with the EF 24-105 f4L IS USM lens. This is a workhorse of the L series lens, and it's a common kit lens with the 5D and 6D models. So many photographers have and use this lens, and it actually works pretty well with the EOS M10. It was the slowest of the three, but still performed acceptably for, again, a non-native lens on this mirrorless camera. And when we tried the Canon 24-105 lens on the A5100 with the Metabones speed booster, I was never able to get the camera to achieve focus with the Canon lens. So again, this is something where you may get a benefit out of the Metabones adapter from a speed standpoint and from a flexibility standpoint in terms of your available zoom range. However, it's not something you're going to be able to rely on for autofocus. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this little comparison between the Canon EOS M10 and the Sony A5100 using non-native lenses and adapters for each of the cameras. Canon is clearly improving its performance on its mirrorless cameras, and I'm hopeful that 2015 will be a solid year for Canon's mirrorless efforts. Sony is winning across the board in the mirrorless market. From the bottom level consumer options up to the top level high-end Sony A7R II full frame models, Sony is simply knocking it out of the park. What Sony needs to work on in 2015 is building out that lens library, maybe slowing down on the frequency of camera releases and build up that lens library. I know Sony fans are asking for and looking forward to more lenses, so they don't have to wonder about whether a non-native Canon lens will work with a particular adapter for their camera. On the consumer end of things, the A5100 will do just fine, and most A5100 users are probably not looking at using an adapter for their collection of Canon lenses. We'll be looking at more adapters and accessories coming up soon in the Sony email line. If you've got a question or you're curious about a particular adapter or accessory, let me know in the comments and I'll try to make the popular request happen.